The Copper Wire Club. A story of quiet justice and questionable passwords. Chapter 1. The Tuesday Marguerite came over crying. I have been retired for 6 years, and in that time I have fixed the boiler twice, re-tiled the bathroom, built a raised vegetable bed that my daughter calls a monument to stubbornness, and done precisely nothing that anyone would consider heroic. I am Arthur Beckett. I am 68 years old. I live in a village in Shropshire where the big news last month was a fox getting into Clive Henshaw's garden shed. I was perfectly content with all of this. Then Marguerite knocked on my door on a Tuesday in March, and everything changed. Marguerite Sorrel is my next-door neighbor. She is 71, French-born but English for the last 40 years, and she has the sort of elegant posture that makes the rest of us feel apologetic about our spines. She lost her husband, Henri, 3 years ago. Since then she and I have shared a fence, a mutual fondness for proper coffee, and a Tuesday afternoon habit of watching old films on her television while she corrects my French pronunciation, and I pretend to find it educational. She was not elegant on that Tuesday. She was standing on my doorstep in the rain, with a piece of paper in her hand and her eyes red from crying, and when I opened the door she said, "Arthur, I have been very, very stupid," in a voice so quiet I barely heard it over the gutters. I brought her inside. I made coffee. I listened. It had begun, she explained, 8 months earlier, on a Facebook group for people who enjoyed classical music. A man had posted a comment on a recording she'd shared. Something warm and knowledgeable about Debussy. They had started talking. His name was David Laurent. He said he was a French-Swiss architect working on a project in Lagos. He was charming. He remembered things she told him. He asked after her garden by name. Over the weeks, he became a fixture in her mornings, a voice she looked forward to, a presence that made the house feel slightly less empty. I knew it was foolish. She said, "I am not a naive woman." "No," I said. "You are not. But loneliness makes you." She stopped. Set her coffee down. "It makes you want very much to believe." David Laurent had, over the course of 4 months, told her he had fallen in love with her. He could not video call because of the connection in Lagos. He would come and visit her in the spring. He had sent her flowers. Real flowers, delivered to her door, which had made it all feel undeniably real. And then, in January, he had found himself in terrible trouble. A shipment of materials had been impounded by customs. The project was in jeopardy, and without a temporary loan of £22,000 wired to an account in Singapore, everything he had worked for would collapse. She had sent it. And then, when a second emergency arose 2 weeks later, she had sent another £9,000. And when she had finally, reluctantly, asked her bank why she was running so low, a very kind and very sorrowful advisor had sat with her for an hour and explained what had happened. I stared at the piece of paper in her hand. It was a printout of the bank transfers. £31,000. Her husband's life insurance money. The savings she described, once, as Henry's last gift. The police were very polite, she said. They said they would file a report. They said. Her voice tightened. They said these cases are very difficult. The money is offshore. The accounts are closed. They said I should not expect to see it returned. I looked at her. I looked at the printout. I thought of Henri, who had worked 40 years in a Shrewsbury print shop, and driven a modest car, and been quietly, unshowily proud of looking after his wife. Something very old and very stubborn woke up in my chest. "Marguerite," I said, "do you still have all the messages? Every conversation?" She blinked. "Yes." I could not bring myself to delete them. "Good," I said. "Don't. And do you remember the name of the bank they had you wire the money to?" "Yes. It was in Singapore. DBS Bank. I have the account number." I nodded slowly. I was already thinking about the loft. In my loft, under a tarpaulin that my daughter once called a fire hazard wrapped in nostalgia, I have kept 30 years' worth of telecoms equipment. Patch panels, signal analyzers, a rack of old modems, 2 laptops from the early 2000s that still work because I serviced them properly, and a cabinet of cables that my former colleagues at BT would either revere or mock depending on their generation. I had spent my career maintaining the physical infrastructure of Britain's telephone networks. The copper wire, the exchanges, the trunk lines. I knew, in a way that very few people still did, how communications were actually routed. The switches and relays, the carrier protocols, the digital and analog handshakes that most people simply called the Internet, without thinking about what lay underneath. I was not a hacker. I was something older and, I suspected, more useful. I was someone who understood the pipes. "I'm going to need to call my daughter," I said. Chapter 2. Claire, and why she is both helpful and exhausting. My daughter Claire is 44, works in marketing for a company that makes artisan oat crackers, and has what I can only describe as a complicated relationship with technology. She uses it constantly and understands it barely at all. She once called me in a panic because her laptop had gone gray, which turned out to mean she'd accidentally changed the screensaver. She is also, underneath all of this, enormously competent. She organized her mother's funeral at 36 with a precision that would have impressed a military general, and she has never once in her life backed down from something she felt was right. I phoned her on a Wednesday morning and told her what had happened to Marguerite. There was a long silence. Then, "The police said there was nothing they could do." "That's what they said." Another silence. "So what are you going to do about it, Dad?" "I thought I'd try to get the money back." She laughed. Then she realized I wasn't joking. "You're serious. Come for the weekend," I said. "Bring your laptop and your social media knowledge, whatever that amounts to. I'll handle the technical side. Between us, I think we might be able to do something quite interesting." She arrived on Friday evening with a wheelie case, a large bag of her company's oat crackers. "For thinking fuel, Dad." And the expression of someone who expects to spend the weekend being bossed around by a retired engineer. She was not entirely wrong. We set up in my study, which I cleared of its usual function. Half-completed crosswords, birdwatching logs, and a very slow jig sawing of the Lake District. And converted into what Claire immediately named the Operations Center. Which I found embarrassing but allowed because she seemed to need it. I went through Marguerite's messages first. All 643 of them, printed and stacked by date. I read every one. The scammers were good. Genuinely good. The emotional architecture was sophisticated. They'd built rapport slowly, asked questions and remembered answers, calibrated the romantic escalation perfectly. But they were not technically careful, and that was their mistake. In their haste to establish believability, they had made 3 errors that I could see with a trained eye. First, the photographs of David Laurent that Marguerite had saved were stock images. I ran them through a reverse image search that Claire performed on her phone. She did it in 11 seconds, which impressed me more than I showed, and found they belonged to a Swiss landscape architect named Martin Voller, who had no idea his face had been borrowed. Second, the flowers that had been sent to Marguerite had come via a UK delivery service. Somebody local, or with a UK-based account, had placed that order. The confirmation email Marguerite had received still had the sender's reference number in the header. Third, and most useful, in one early message, before the scammers had thought to scrub their metadata, an image of David's Lagos office had been sent as an attachment. Embedded in the file's EXIF data. The invisible digital fingerprint that photographs carry was a timestamp and, faintly, a cell tower identifier suggesting the photo had been taken in a country that was emphatically not Nigeria. The photograph was taken in the Philippines, I said, reading the data off my old laptop. Claire looked over my shoulder. How on earth can you tell that from a photo? Metadata, I said. Every digital file carries information about where and when it was created. Most people don't know it's there. And the scammers didn't remove it? Not on this one. They got careless early on. I leaned back. Here's what I think we're dealing with. A romance scam ring, probably operating out of Southeast Asia. The Philippines is a common hub. They use scripted romantic personas, hire local flower services to add authenticity, route the money through offshore accounts. They'll have run this same operation on dozens of women. So what do we do? I smiled. Claire, I noticed, looked faintly alarmed by this. We become David Laurent, I said. Or rather, we become someone he wants to trust very much. Chapter 3. Operation Copperwire. I want to be precise about what we did, because I am aware that a retired BT engineer and his cracker company daughter outwit an international fraud ring from a study in Shropshire is the kind of sentence that requires some explanation. The key insight was this: scammers are also operating on trust. They trust that their victims are isolated and too embarrassed to tell anyone. They trust that once the money is moved, it cannot be traced. And they trust that anyone who contacts them is a potential target, not a threat. Our plan had 3 phases. Claire handled the social layer. I handled the technical layer. And Marguerite, bravely, handled the bait. Claire created a new Facebook profile over the course of a single evening, with a speed and confidence that reminded me she was, after all, a professional in communications. The profile was a man named Richard Beaumont. Recently widowed, comfortably wealthy, retired banker, living in Geneva. She populated it with photographs sourced carefully from public domain and Creative Commons archives. A distinguished-looking gray-haired man at various European locations. She built 6 weeks of plausible history into his timeline. Posts about opera, about wine, about missing his late wife. She found a classical music appreciation group and had Richard join it and post a single thoughtful comment about Ravel. "Do you think that's enough bait?" I asked. "Give it 48 hours, she said. She was eating an oat cracker with the focused calm of a chess grandmaster. She was right. Within 36 hours, a profile called Elena Marchetti had commented warmly on Richard's post. The account was 22 days old, populated with stolen photographs of a brunette woman in her 40s, and it had a private message in Richard's inbox within the hour. "That's them," I said. "Different persona, same operation. They run multiple characters in parallel." Meanwhile, I had been working on the technical side. The flower delivery reference number from Marguerite's email led, with some patient following of digital threads. WHOIS records, email header routing data, the sort of infrastructure analysis I'd done professionally for 30 years. To a small UK-based account at a floristry fulfillment service. The account had been created with a temporary email address, but that address had been reused twice in other contexts. Once to register for a courier tracking service and once, remarkably, to create a social media account that was still active. The social media account, a dormant Twitter profile, had, in an early moment of carelessness, followed 3 other accounts that were all connected to a Filipino outsourcing company that had since been closed. Company's house had no record of it. But the company's old website, still cached, still visible if you knew where to look, listed a business address in Cebu City. "We have a location," I told Claire on Sunday morning. "Not a name, but a location and a network." "Is that enough?" "For what I need, yes." Here is what I understood about the scammer's financial operation, from both my own analysis and from reading the rather excellent reports that financial crime journalists had published on this type of fraud. The money, Marguerite's £31,000, had moved through at least 3 accounts before being distributed. But the ring still needed to process new payments. They were still active. And they were, right now, actively pursuing Richard Beaumont. The plan was elegant, though I say so myself. I set up a virtual private network, a VPN, that would route all our communications through a Swiss server, because Richard was supposed to be in Geneva. I then set up a secondary email account in Richard's name, hosted on a service that kept detailed delivery records. When the time came for Elena to send Richard a document, which scammers typically do, a false love contract, a gift declaration, an investment proposal, that document would be routed through our server, and I would be able to see its origin metadata with a precision that the scammers did not anticipate. But the cleverest piece, and this was Claire's idea, not mine, and I will not let her forget that I admitted it, was the counter-emotional hook. "These people are psychologists," she said on Saturday night, drinking wine at my kitchen table. "They understand exactly how loneliness works. So we use that against them. Richard doesn't fall in love with Elena. He's interested, but cautious. He keeps mentioning his late wife. He says he's been hurt before, that he has trust issues. Making them work harder," I said. "Making them invest. And then," she pointed her glass at me, Then we tell them he's about to move a large sum of money, inheritance from his wife's estate, and he needs advice on where to place it. We make them think they've found a whale. I stared at her. Claire, that is quite devious. She ate an oat cracker. Marketing, she said simply. Chapter 4. Richard Beaumont's very convincing tragedy. Over the following 3 weeks, Claire became Richard Beaumont with a dedication that I found both impressive and slightly unsettling. She messaged Elena every morning and evening, maintaining the character with the disciplined consistency of a novelist. Richard was warm but reserved. He shared memories of his wife, Elizabeth, with a specificity. A favorite restaurant in Lyon, a habit of reading aloud to each other, a last holiday to Corsica that Claire invented on the spot and then carefully logged in a notebook so she could remember them. Elena responded. And then, gradually, Elena became warmer, more urgent, more invested. The scripted romance accelerated slightly. A sign, I suspected, that they were trying to move faster than usual because the prize seemed larger. Richard had mentioned, in passing, that his wife's estate had been settled. The figure of approximately 400,000 Swiss francs. I watched the metadata on every message they sent us. The documents they emailed. A declaration of intent. That was, in truth, a standard scam template we'd seen described in several fraud reports. IF and header data I could read like a map. By the end of week 2, I had confirmed the originating IP addresses traced to an internet cafe cluster in Cebu City, the same location I had found earlier. I had also identified that 2 different operators were working the Richard persona in shifts because the writing style changed slightly between morning and evening messages. Claire had noticed this too, independently. The morning one is better, she said. More empathetic. The evening one rushes. You've become fond of the morning one, I observed. I've become fond of winning, she corrected. In week 3, Elena presented her crisis. Her daughter was ill. The hospitals in her location were demanding advance payment. She hated to ask, but could Richard possibly, just temporarily, help her? She could wire it back within days. It would mean everything. Richard expressed deep concern. Richard said he wanted to help. Richard said he had spoken to his banker in Geneva about making a transfer, but that the bank had a new anti-fraud protocol. They required, for any international transfer over 50,000 francs, a verification call with the recipient using a bank-approved encrypted line. They would send Elena a special application to download. That's the key, I explained to Claire. We're not sending them money. We're sending them software. The application I had prepared was, in truth, a legitimate and freely available network diagnostic tool, disguised with a custom interface. It did nothing harmful. But when run, it reported back to our server with the precise technical details of the machine running it. Operating system, local network configuration, and, most critically, its real IP address, bypassing any VPN they might be using themselves. Would they run it? I wasn't certain. But I thought the lure of 400,000 francs might overcome their caution. Elena said she would ask her bank contact about the application. There was a 48-hour pause. I went back to my vegetable bed and did some thinking while tying up the runner beans. The thing about these operations, I had come to understand, is that they have supervisors. The romantic operators are workers. Above them are people who manage the money flow and make strategic decisions. Someone, somewhere up that chain, was currently evaluating whether Richard Beaumont was real. On the third day, Elena came back. She had spoken to her contact. They would try the application. Could Richard send it again? I sent it. 17 minutes later, our server logged a connection from a machine in Cebu City. I had a real IP address. And with a real IP address, I had something I could hand to people who could actually use it. Because here is what I am not. I am not law enforcement. I am not a cyber crime investigator. I am a retired telecoms engineer from Shropshire. But I had spent 30 years building professional relationships with people at BT, at Ofcom, at several international telecommunications regulatory bodies, and with one particular former colleague who had moved, upon retirement, to a voluntary advisory role with Interpol's Financial Crimes Unit. His name is Terry Ashworth, and he owes me a favor dating back to 1987 involving a particularly complicated exchange routing problem in the West Midlands that I will not detail here. I called Terry. "Arthur," he said. "Long time. What have you got?" "A real IP address, 2 operator shift patterns, a confirmed Cebu City location, a UK-based fulfillment account, and 643 message logs," I said. "And a 61-page document trail from a victim who is prepared to give a formal statement." There was a pause. "Send it all," he said. "All of it. Tonight." Chapter 5. What the copper wire carried home. I am going to be honest about what happened next, because I think honesty is important and because I am too old to tell a story bigger than it was. We did not single-handedly dismantle an international fraud ring. Terry and his contacts worked with Philippine authorities over several months. There were arrests. I read about them eventually in a brief item on the BBC News website. 4 paragraphs, no names. But the legal process was slow and complicated and largely opaque to me. What did happen? And this is the part one care about. Was this. The network dossier we provided was sufficient to identify and freeze several active accounts connected to the operation before further victims could be targeted. And the UK financial regulator, working from our evidence about the fulfillment account, was able to apply to recover funds that had been held in a dormant escrow arrangement used by the ring to launder smaller amounts through British accounts. £14,000 of Marguerite's £31,000 was recoverable. Not all of it. Not justice in the clean, storybook sense. But £14,000 was £14,000, and when the letter arrived, a formal letter from a financial recovery unit, addressed to Marguerite, explaining the partial recovery. She sat at my kitchen table and held it for a long time without speaking. "Henri would have liked you very much, Arthur," she said finally. "I rather think Henri would have done this faster and with better equipment," I said. She laughed. It was the first time I had heard her laugh properly in months. Claire stayed for a celebratory dinner that evening. Marguerite cooked, which meant it was excellent. Then over the cheese course my daughter said, quietly, that it had been the most interesting weekend she'd spent in years, though she maintained that weekend was doing a lot of heavy lifting given that it had stretched to nearly a month of evenings and Saturday mornings. You could have been a detective, she told me. I was an engineer, I said. It's the same thing. You follow where the signal goes. You should write it up, she said. For other people. Older people who might get targeted. What to look for. What the metadata means. How to spot a fake profile. I looked at her. You want me to write a guide? Or do a talk at the village hall? She grinned. I could make a PowerPoint. Absolutely not, I said. The talk at the village hall took place 6 weeks later. I prepared the material. Claire made the PowerPoint. It was, against all my expectations, rather good. Clear fonts, sensible diagrams, none of the visual chaos I had anticipated. 38 people came, which for a Wednesday evening in a Shropshire village is essentially a sellout. 2 of them told me afterward that they recognized things in what I described. Patterns of contact, requests for gift cards, the emotional escalation that they had experienced themselves or seen happen to friends. I gave them Terry Ashworth's public advisory email address. I gave them the action fraud number. And I gave them a short list of things to remember. Check the photograph. Look at when the account was created. Never wire money to someone you've never met on a video call, and most importantly, tell someone. Don't sit with it alone. Tell a child, a neighbor, a friend. Tell anyone. Loneliness is what these people sell back to you. I told the room. They find it and they sell you a cure for it, and the cure is fake. The best protection against that is real connection. The kind that doesn't need a photograph of a Swiss architect. There was a silence, and then Clive Henshaw, who had lost his wife 2 years ago and had come to the talk alone, raised his hand and said, "My daughter keeps telling me to get on Facebook. Should I?" With great caution and with her help, "Yes," I said. "Never alone." He nodded. He seemed to find this satisfying. After the hall emptied, Claire and Marguerite and I walked back along the lane in the dark. The hedgerows smelled of early May. A fox screamed somewhere in the direction of Clive's shed, which seemed appropriate. "What next?" Claire said, linking her arm through mine. "Next," I said, "I am going to finish my jigsaw of the Lake District, and then I am going to have a very quiet spring. And if something else comes up." I thought about the loft. About the patch panels and the signal analyzers and the cabinet of cables under the tarpaulin. About the fact that I had spent 30 years learning how the communications of the world were actually built, wire by wire, switch by switch. And that this knowledge had sat unused in a Shropshire study for 6 years, waiting for something worth pointing it at. "Then I suppose," I said, "we'll see." Marguerite squeezed my other arm. Above us, the sky was the particular dark blue of a clear English night, and somewhere a long way away, in the invisible infrastructure of signals and copper and light, the world was talking to itself in all its complicated, hopeful, foolish, connectable humanity. I had spent my career keeping those lines open. It turned out there was still work to do.